I'd like to call tonight's regular business meeting of Tuesday, July 28, 2026 to order. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Christine Brown, City Clerk. Please state for the record if you're present after I call your name. Mayor Moriwaki.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Present.
Councilmember Matthews.
Present.
Councilmember Fentroy Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Nelson.
Present.
Councilmember Land.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. And would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
It's okay. Usually we do the land acknowledgement. We've been trying to have a student host that, but we couldn't get a student this week, so we will move on to our regular agenda. So, council members, the next item is item number 2, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Nelson has moved. Councilmember Fentroy Johnson seconded approval of agenda. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Vote is 5-0. Chair votes aye. Passes 6-0. Any announcements of conflict of interest at this time? Councilmember Land. Oh, just saw the light. Very good. All right, let's move on to presentations on 3A. And we were going to approve a proclamation declaring July 28th, 2026 as Melanie Marie Keenan Champion for Water Resources Day. It will be read by the Deputy Mayor, Kirsten Hytopoulos.
Thank you. A proclamation by the City Council of the City of Bainbridge Island, Washington, declaring July 28, 2026 as Melanie Marie Keenan Champion for Water Resources Day on Bainbridge Island for her dedicated contributions to environmental stewardship and protection of the island's water resources. Whereas Melanie grew up in suburban Detroit and finished high school in Morgantown, West Virginia, where she started her academic career as a fine arts major on a full-ride scholarship at West Virginia University. And whereas her passion for science and nature led her to transfer to Fort Collins, Colorado to pursue a degree in geology at Colorado State University. And whereas Melanie met the love of her life, Malcolm Gander, a kindred spirit in hydrology in 1980, and they later married and raised 2 children, Miles and Maddie, on Bainbridge Island after moving from Carnation, Washington in 2002. And whereas Melanie and Malcolm and family appreciated the outdoors throughout their time together with countless hiking, skiing, and camping trips across North America, whereas Melanie contributed countless hours, energy, and expertise to the City of Bainbridge Island as an involved resident, as a volunteer with the Environmental Technical Advisory Committee and the Bainbridge Conservation Coalition, as a City Council candidate, and as a constant presence at City Council and other public meetings. And whereas Melanie served as the lead author of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's sole source aquifer designation petition for Bainbridge Island in 2009, which was codified in the Federal Register in 2013. And whereas Melanie tenaciously defended the sole source aquifer status of the city since the designation was completed, despite repeated attempts to diminish its impact on the preservation of the water resources of Bainbridge Island. And whereas despite her cancer diagnosis over 7 years ago, Melanie remained fearlessly committed to protecting the water resources of the city until her final days, and her dedication and love for her family, the natural world, and our community are an inspiration for us all. Now, therefore, I, Clarence Moriwaki, Mayor of the City of Bainbridge Island, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby declare July 28, 2026 to be Melanie Marie Keenan Champion for Water Resources Day in the City of Bainbridge Island. Is Malcolm here to receive it? Yeah.
Wow. Malcolm, will you please come to the podium and address the council? Not the audience, us, please.
My daughter Maddie is going to read something from Melanie's sister, Terry Keenan, who is on the East Coast, but she's listening via Zoom. Maddie?
Hello, thank you. Terry's statement. Although I cannot be here in person today, I would like to thank the Bainbridge Island City Council, Charlie Kratzer, Malcolm Gander, members of the Environmental Technical Advisory Committee and Bainbridge Island Conservation Coalition, and other members of the community for making today's proclamation honoring Melanie Keenan possible. Your ongoing collaboration has supported my dear sister's tireless efforts to safeguard the environment and preserve the future of this beautiful place she called home, Bainbridge Island. It is my fervent hope that the future of Bainbridge Island City Council members, educators, and the community will continue to honor Melanie's determination and preservation by taking on her work. By continuing to be thoughtful and diligent stewards of the environment, you will make her efforts your legacy on this island she loves so much. Melanie would want you to pay it forward for future generations. I'm grateful for your recognition of my sister. From Terry Keenan.
Thank you so much. And now for item 3B.
Point of order, shouldn't we vote?
Was there a motion on that?
Well, we have to
No, it's a
authorize, it,
proclamation.
but it's not one that's been done before, so we have to vote on it.
Okay, let's do it.
So I guess I'll make a motion, okay?
Sure, please.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign the proclamation declaring July 28th, 2026 as Melanie Marie Keenan Champion for Water Resources Day.
I second.
Moved and seconded, moved by Councilmember Nelson, seconded by Councilmember Matthews to approve this proclamation. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Vote is 5-0. Chair votes aye. Vote 6-0. Thank you for catching that, Councilmember Nelson. Just trying to speed things along, Ernie. All right. Thank you. Thank you again. Presentation 3B, present proclamation for National Night Out on August 6th, 2024, being read by Councilmember Matthews.
Thanks, Mayor. A proclamation by the City Council of the City of Bainbridge Island, Washington, declaring August 4th, 2026, from 4 to 7 p.m. at Waterfront Park on Bainbridge Island as a community National Night Out event. Community for neighbors on Bainbridge Island to join over 38 million neighbors across 18,000 communities from all 50 states, U.S. territories, and military bases worldwide. And whereas National Night Out is an annual community building event that promotes strong police community partnerships and neighborhood camaraderie to make Bainbridge Island neighborhoods safer, more caring, and compassionate places to live and work. And whereas this annual event strengthens community spirit and resilience through local events and activities. And whereas the City of Bainbridge Island recognizes the importance of fostering strong community bonds and promoting neighborhood safety. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Clarence Morawaki, Mayor of the City of Bainbridge Island, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim August 4th, 2026 as National Night Out. And I encourage all residents to join the City and Police Department in participating in the National Night Out event that promotes community engagement, unity and compassion, safety awareness, and strong bonds with local law enforcement and other first responders. Dated this 28th day of July, 2026. Mayor Clarence Morawaki. And I'm going to present it to Chief Joe Clark.
Photo op first, Chief.
Well, good evening, Council, and thank you for your continued support. I also want to thank this crowd. Such a great turnout for this proclamation. I appreciate every one of you for coming tonight, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. National Night Out is our opportunity to bring neighbors together, strengthen community bonds, and promote safety and unity. Not only will your police department be there on Tuesday, but we will have our partner agencies and other first responders, but also community resource providers that'll be there to share information on the services that are available to this community. So please join me next Tuesday, 4 p.m. at Waterfront Park. We look forward to seeing all of you there. Thank you much.
Thank you very much, Chief Clark. Now we'll open up to public comment. The clerk will bring me the list. Public comment is simply received by the council with no response, and council cannot deliberate on items that are not on the agenda. The lack of comment is not an endorsement or denial of the comment.
Did we do consent? Okay. Oops. Oh,
No. So, and people that first wouldn't be up and the second name, please be in the batter's box, batter circle. JP first and then Malcolm Gann.
Hello. My name is JP Powell. And I am speaking to you tonight to show my support for legitimate affordable housing, including the 625 housing project. I unfortunately cannot stay until 7, but would like my voice to be heard. Many of you probably recognize me, whether it's by name or by face. I am the communications coordinator and front desk worker at the Bainbridge Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Info Center. I am also a freelance artist, a nanny for a low-income family, and a very occasional event bartender. It is quite literally my job to be the face of this island, to welcome people from all walks of life to our community, to make business owners and workers across the island feel safe, welcome, and supported. I must preface that I love my jobs. I'm a community caretaker at heart. I think this island offers a lot of really cool community resources and has a lot of amazing people. I love my coworkers, I love the people I serve, and mostly I love getting to know the workers on this island on an intimate level. Being able to serve this community fuels my soul, and that's why it sits like a ball of lead in my gut that building life within this community is not a possibility for me. Across all the jobs I have, I do not make nearly enough money to afford any form of rent on this island, let alone all of the other costs that come with being alive. It's not even close. I am extremely privileged to have parents who can afford to rent a space on this island and have funds to allow me to live at home while I work here. However, many of my fellow service workers on this island do not have this privilege. During the World Cup, when our island welcomed record levels of tourists, I was asked several times by visitors, all of the workers in the downtown strip are so young, how do you all afford to live here? The truth is we do not. I have to explain to these visitors that most of us travel from Seattle or over the bridge every day to serve this island and bring our downtown to life. Those of us that are lucky enough to stay on this island live in ADUs of friends and family, with parents, or even sleep in camper vans on the days that they work. While I assure these visitors that I love the work I do here and this island, I cannot hide the truth that beyond our jobs, we don't exist on this island. We can't exist on this island. There is a sign coming from the ferry that reads, "Diversity, equity, and inclusion, a city that welcomes all." The irony is, many of us service and hospitality workers that cannot afford to be here long term are young, queer, disabled, and/or BIPOC. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's most recent statistics, the island is 83.7% white and up to 95.8% able-bodied under the age of 65. We all have heard the voices of people who we serve daily fighting ruthlessly to delay and end affordable housing projects on this island. The part they don't say out loud, and some do, is the part that we, the young service workers of the island, hear the loudest. That they don't want people like us to exist in their spaces. People who currently struggle to make ends meet, people who make Bainbridge legal minimum wage, which is $17.13 an hour, who rely on community care resources to have an equal chance at thriving. We feel we are worth less than an ocean view. We are worth less than the strict aesthetic of the downtown. It makes us not want to be a part of Bainbridge because we can't find other people like ourselves among the crowds here. It makes us feel unsafe, unheard, unable to live authentically. Inclusion and diversity aren't decorative words for a sign. Real inclusion is a verb. Real community is a verb. And until the city seriously takes an effort to open its gates to allow for greater density, housing affordable to those who receive the minimum wage on this island, we will remain a predominantly white island that's inherently exclusive. This is why affordable housing matters to me, and I know it matters to many of you too. Thank you for your time, attention, and service to our city. I hope that we all can see a Bainbridge where we all can be welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. Malcolm Gardner.
Thank you, Alan, Clarence, and every single one of the city council for the proclamation for Melanie. It's richly deserved and most appreciated by our family and by a growing number of people who support transparency and data-driven decisions, but that's not just technical data. That has to do with economic and political realities. Melanie raised awareness. She was big on education about the water. We started working on this really around 2005, 2006. And during those days when Darlene Cardona was really staffing up and hiring contractors and doing a lot of things, spending a lot of money, the whole water situation was really shrouded in mystery by design. That has all changed. And Melanie had a lot to do with that. And I also wanted to digress a second and thank Charlie Kratzer for his efforts in writing up the proclamation. Thanks so much, Charlie. So we're all better off with a basic understanding of our water supply, how it's limited, how even well-funded drilling programs for production wells can fail. Just ask Wing Point. Just ask KPUD. In 2001, we had about 21,000 people on the island. Now we have about 25,000, 25 years later. So one of the points that I kept bringing forth, and happily it was put in the appendix, was showing how our extraction from the production wells has increased significantly. So, you know, there's reasons for that. It's not all residential, you know, it's commercial. I'm just saying there's more water coming out of the aquifers. But even more important than that is the recharge. It's right in the groundwater management plan. You talk to the KPUD experts, city experts. It's really important to understand that. So 2 management strategies I hope to convey to you, and we'll be talking about this a lot in the future. One is preserving the recharge areas that we have. We have laws on the books to preserve critical aquifer recharge areas, but there are gaps in that. So we have to work on that, and that was recommended as a management strategy in the groundwater management plan. The other one is stormwater. There are upgrades we can do that won't break the bank, and that stormwater can be redirected back into the ground, and that's going to help recharge. So to finish up, and I'm sorry I'm going over, in the last 25 years, we have grown about 4,000 people. I expect we're going to grow those kind of numbers in the future. There's camps out there that want Bainbridge to grow significantly more than that. I'm telling you, there's a lot of empirical evidence that says it's going to be hard from an economic, but especially a groundwater management, groundwater resource perspective, to bring the water to more than 4,000 people in the next 25 years. But we can work on it. We can work on it together. We can chip away in part with conservation and with the stormwater upgrades. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. No, please no applause. We don't allow, please don't applaud. We don't allow that during our meetings other than the proclamations. City Clerk Brown, is there any person online? Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to come forward and speak? Please give your name, and you have 3 minutes. And state who you are.
Good evening, Council. Ron Peltier, Valley Road. Just want to speak about the proclamation. First of all, thank you for passing the proclamation. It's appropriate that someone who was committed to protecting Bainbridge Island's groundwater and educating citizens about our aquifers is being honored on a night when the Department of Commerce is here as part of their ongoing campaign to force unsustainable growth on Bainbridge Island. There, I said it. In addition to successfully getting Bainbridge Island designated as a sole source aquifer island, Melanie Keenan conducted groundwater workshops and was an advocate in 2015 for a Bainbridge Island groundwater management plan. I worked with Melanie and Malcolm over the past couple of years and marveled at how Melanie kept going in spite of her prognosis and regular exhausting treatments, all the while keeping her wicked sense of humor and commitment to educating Bainbridge Islanders about the island's unique hydrogeologic qualities. Bainbridge Island is a sole source aquifer island with a system of aquifers We're solely dependent upon those aquifers for our domestic supply of water. Bainbridge Island is the only sole source aquifer island city in Washington and perhaps the entire country. I don't know if the Department of Commerce actually knows that. Maybe they will now. The entirety of Bainbridge Island is a critical aquifer recharge area, which the city is required to protect from net loss of function. Thank you for recognizing Melanie and her contributions to our community tonight. We are better off for having her here amongst us. Thank you and have a great meeting.
Thank you, Ron. Is there anyone, please, crowd? We really don't encourage reaction of any kind, pro or con. Anyone else would like to speak? Please give your name and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Mary Claire Kirsten. Good evening, City Council, and good evening to our guests from the Department of Commerce. My main point is this: Bainbridge is an island. I wish people would take special note of this and write it down. Bainbridge is an island. Bainbridge is an EPA designated sole source aquifer island. I'm glad you're here tonight so that you can better understand Bainbridge and its present situation as we grapple with our comprehensive plan and the requirements placed on us by HB 1110 and HB 1220. HB 1220 specifically disregards our designated sole source aquifer status, and that's a problem. I wish that all urban planners could take a class that deals specifically with developing islands. It's not the same as developing the mainland. I'm just going to voice 2 concerns. My first concern, our roads. Our roads, by necessity, all funnel into 2 main 2-lane roads, Route 305 and Linwood Fletcher Bay Miller Road. There's nowhere else to go, and the roads fill up quickly. How many more cars do we want to handle? Long ago, we surpassed our ability to evacuate this island. In the event of a forest fire, such as Lahaina's, we will suffer overwhelming mass casualties should we be adding lots more cars. There are 2 ways on and off the island: the ferry and a 2-lane bridge. Even so, Bainbridge is a designated highway linking Kitsap to Seattle, and the state wants us to absorb more cars. My second concern, Bainbridge is an EPA designated sole source aquifer island. The latest study suggests that we could see our finite carrying capacity soon as our collective aquifer continues to get drawn down. The south end is already forced to conserve water. Should the state force the island to absorb more and more population, is the state prepared to foot the bill to pay for the costly methods we will need to supply water to the island in the future? And is this what the state really wants? Bainbridge is an island. Please give that some more thought and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Please, audience, we don't allow any kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Demonstration of any kind. We just don't let people speak. It's the credit to them to have their own moment, and it's also, if someone's against it, not to be booed at either. So please respect the rules here. Please come forward and share your name.
My name is Mary Hackman. I live in Valley Heights, on Valley Heights Road, next to Ron. I wasn't sure which list to sign up for. You had 2 of them. But I really want to tie my comments into Melanie. So I'm going to talk now, and I don't need to talk twice. I've been looking this past week, very seriously, last couple of weeks actually, into the whole issue of the critical recharge legal requirements. And I went looking because it seemed to me like the comprehensive plan seemed really light on the water issue. And maybe part of that is because under the Growth Management Act, there's a whole separate provisions on the requirements imposed on you for critical recharge areas. And they hinge on two things that are really important and happening right now. One is if you change your land development plan, you have to take into account what that's doing to a critical recharge area and mitigate. I haven't really seen any attempt to mitigate so far what we're doing on land development. And the second issue is you're absolutely required to use best available science. And the groundwater management plan is currently the best available science, and it's new. So actually you're required by state law to take into account what it now says. And what it now says, thanks to a lot of really good hard work by Melanie and others, is we know now that there's a limit. There's a limit to what we can do, and we even know what that bandwidth is. It's wide. We need to do a lot more study, but we know we're limited. Vashon Island, we're not Mercer. We don't draw water from anywhere else. And it's critical because we don't have another source for water. And I realized in looking at all this, it was hard for me to wrap my head around it, and maybe you're struggling with the same thing. And I think the reason why is the whole island is critical recharge. So it'd almost be easier if there were like a segment of the island that was critical recharge, and then you could go develop over here and just protect that. The whole island is critical recharge. And what that means is we need that whole island sending water into the aquifers for us to be able to sustain what we have. So everything you're doing on development impacts a critical recharge area. And I think that really needs a hard second look. I think that also needs a hard second look in light of the groundwater management plan and the new information that has brought forward, because really this is the first time we've known for sure, yeah, there's a limit and we're going to hit it. And if we want things like affordable housing, we got to really prioritize it because there may not be much development left at all. So we got to think long and hard about what we're doing on that development front. We also need to mitigate. I mean, there are things you can do when you develop a piece of land to mitigate, to make sure the water's still going in the aquifer. We haven't really looked at that yet, to my knowledge, and I think we need to. So in closing, I want to say, I spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks looking at this, and Responsible Bainbridge filed a letter that I helped draft that starts to flag these issues for you. We'll be more on it. For 2 weeks, I have felt Melanie over my shoulder, whispering in my ear. It's like she's still here, and this is so much her legacy. And I think we really honor her also. And I felt that personally in the time that I've been looking at this. This issue was near and dear to her heart, and it needs to be near and dear to ours as well. And I think we're honoring her when we take a hard look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. And to correct, I believe you meant Bainbridge Island, not Vashon, but I hope that's what you were saying. Anyone moving forward like to speak? In your comments, you said Vashon as a social sacrifice.
I meant to say, sorry, what I meant to say is Vashon also has a limitation due to its aquifer and has no outside water
I
source.
understand that.
Mercer does have an outside water. We're never going to be able to look like Mercer.
Yeah, I misunderstood what you said. Thank you.
Sorry.
Right. Anybody else like to speak? Seeing none, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move to item number 5, the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I have a motion. Okay. I move approval of the consent agenda, but I wanted to pull item I.
And I'd like to say, before there's a second, before there's a second, if there's something on the item that you want to pull out because you think that it should not be on consent, then that's why you should pull it. If you want it for discussion, let's do the motion.
Okay.
Discuss it and then pass the consent.
Okay,
Do you understand?
got it.
Okay, so your motion still stand? You want to pull it for a consideration not to be on the consent agenda?
I just wanted to pull it just so the
We can talk
interim
about it.
city manager could highlight and just
Got it.
speak
Yeah.
about what the issue
Yeah,
is.
right, okay. Thank you. So simply put, we still have a motion. You're going to take the
Mhm.
I off, right?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is approved. Consent agenda. Have a second.
Second.
And then we can, thank you. Now, and, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, it's 5-0. The chair votes aye. 6. Now, on any of these items, let's bring them up and talk because we keep doing this, pulling them off and then repassing. So I recognize first Councilmember Matthews.
Yes, just item I, which is authorizing the city manager to execute a license agreement with the YWCA, which I was today old, or actually Friday old, when I learned that that meant Young Women's Christian Association. Somehow never knew that in my 47 years, but just wanted to hear more about it.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Matthews, Ellen Schroer, Interim City Manager. This is an example of the city papering an agreement and just trying to take care of things that we have already been doing. We learned that we did not have an agreement with the YWCA, although they have been providing services on our island and in our court for a number of years, perhaps a number of decades. And so when we discovered that, we wanted to make sure that they could count on having access to that room to provide the services that they're providing. And so we worked together with them to put together this license agreement to provide that assurance.
Thank you. Thank you. And Councilmember Lant and Deputy Mayor Itopoulos.
I so appreciate this. Thank you for pulling this just so we could have that explanation, because this has been such an appreciated organization that has served our community for so long. As I looked at the agreement, and I love that you papered this just makes it so great for both parties. The first thought that came to my mind, actually the only thought that came to my mind, was, I wonder how much the insurance now is going to be for them to cover what they need to do to take space a certain number of hours a month. And that is just something for all of us to think about as we think about where our donation dollars go, because this might be a new cost for them, which they haven't had before. So this is one of those things where I love it, and then I'm like, huh. So it's just something to think on, but I so appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lamb. Deputy Mayor Hitopoulos.
I could have missed it, but I just want to make sure for the public's sake, and I mean, I hope everybody in the community understands what they provide, but they provide support and assistance counseling for domestic violence victims who are at court. So just to be clear, that's what the YWCA does here.
Thank you. And I just want to applaud Councilmember Lamb for her introduction of this and her advocacy to make sure this came from our city. So thanks for that good work. Any other comments? Well, I would like to discuss just quickly items J and K, and these are simply grants that Commerce is moving forward. That
Point of order, aren't we supposed to make a motion to pass that?
No,
item?
we're still talking about the consent agenda items. So we're in discussion of the consent agenda. No, Councilmember Matthews pulled her motion. She did. She moved her motion to have the consent agenda, and then I referred to her and I said, did you pull I? And you said yes. So her motion is simply approval of the full consent agenda, and of which we are in discussion of. All right? That's right. Okay. Understood. So just bring this to our community's attention. This is over $1.5 million that we're getting from the State Department of Commerce for Housing Resources Bainbridge for the Finch Green Affordable Housing Project. And I just think this is a major step forward for affordable housing. It's something that our community truly needs. And if there's anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Manager?
This item is on the consent agenda because we do need council's approval to accept this grant. This is a pass-through grant that allows Finch Green and the city to work together to defray the costs of the connecting to the city's infrastructure for this project that's going forward.
Thank you. Any further discussion on any other items on the consent agenda? Councilmember Fowler Johnson?
I just wanted to bring up that the deferral for the infrastructure is only for affordable housing.
Right. Yes, that's right. Any further discussion on any item on the consent agenda? Call for the question. All in favor, approval of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Vote is 5-0. The chair votes aye, 6-0. Now we'll turn to the number 6, interim city manager's report.
Thank you, Council. I have just a couple of quick items that I wanted to brief you on. The first is a quick look at the automated traffic safety cameras. This is a project that staff has been working on council's direction. And the project that we're working on really is just to do public outreach, to understand how our community feels about traffic safety cameras. I do want to emphasize that these are not flock cameras. They are a different kind of camera and for a different purpose. These are triggered only at a violation, the traffic cameras, and by state law, there would need to be an ordinance specifically authorizing traffic safety cameras on Bainbridge Island. So we are working on this. We intend over the next couple of months to meet with various city advisory committees and community groups. We will have an open house likely in October and then come back to council with the results of that outreach and engagement and sentiment gathering for you in November to get further direction on how you'd like us to proceed, if at all. So just letting you know that this is ongoing. It's a little slower pace than we had originally been working on, but we wanted to make sure that it stretched into the school year so that we can get information from community members whose kids are in school, as school zones are one place where safety cameras are allowed. And then second, I just wanted to highlight a new view of our ongoing work plan project. We have made a dashboard. I'm so sorry that Councilmember Schneider is not here because she has been asking for a dashboard for so long. And so I'll make sure to highlight this for her. But this is a new way for us to look at the same information that we've been presenting to you as a Word document and an Excel spreadsheet over many years. It is live on the website. And we're looking to have your input and members of the public who want to look and see. Right now, we're tracking over 130 projects. This is by no means all the work that city staff are working on, but we're just trying to see if by making it graphic, we can get more people to take a look at it. We are tracking these by the initiatives that you have given us, and then also by department and by status. So wanting to just let you know that this is available now, and we'll be sending out a link to this to the council so that you can find it more easily. And then finally, just wanted to say, in anticipation of more public comment today, we do have a relatively new podium. There are triangles on the far right side if you'd like to move it up or down, so it's at a height that's comfortable for you. It does take longer than you think it's going to, so if you're pushing on the up arrow or the down arrow and you're giving up, don't give up. And give it a minute and it'll go up and down. And then it does help a lot if you can speak right into the microphone, because otherwise folks online can't hear you. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Matthews.
I'll be really quick, Mayor. Thank you so much, Interim City Manager. So I just had a clarifying question about cameras. And you mentioned that state law requires, permission or an ordinance to have them on the island. So WashDOT couldn't put them on the island without letting us know or something? Because there was someone posted a AI photo of a flock camera coming out of a beautifully manicured lawn up on 305 on the north end, and said that it was a photo taken while they were walking their dog. It was not a real person, it was a bot, and it wasn't a real camera. And rightfully so, folks added it to what is a database site, DFlock, for that
Right.
list flock cameras around the country and around the area. But it wasn't a real location or a real camera. And so now there are many folks who are rightfully concerned and questioning us, but just want to make sure that WashDOT's policy isn't that they can put cameras and we don't know.
That's correct. They cannot do that.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Councilman
And
Matt.
thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Councilman Matthews and Interim City Manager. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to our regular business. Public hearing. We're going to have a joint and quote public hearing with Department of Commerce on city progress and meeting the Housing Accountability Act. Interim City Manager, would you tell us the process?
Yes. First, I guess I'll introduce and welcome two members from the Department of Commerce to the dais to hold a joint public hearing. In the time that I've been here, I think this is the first time that we've had a joint public hearing with a state agency. So when we're done with the introduction, I'll ask them to introduce themselves. This public hearing is a joint public hearing with the subject of the Housing Accountability Act. This is a law that was passed in 2025. One, to promote and support housing planning statewide. One aspect is that the Department of Commerce is conducting both voluntary and selected or required review processes. And we were one of the first cities to be selected to participate in this process. Since the beginning of the year, we've exchanged quite a bit of information back and forth. We have welcomed staff member Laura Hodgson at several meetings, so thank you very much, Laura, for coming to City Council and Planning Commission meetings. And tonight we're having a joint public hearing as part of this audit. I want to emphasize that this is not the same as the comprehensive plan update. So this hearing does not replace a separate public hearing, which we will be having later on both ordinances 2026-04 and 05, adopting our development regulations and our comprehensive plan. This is specific to the Housing Accountability Act. So I want to make sure that that is clear. And then just welcome and ask you to introduce yourselves. The process will be for us to hear from the Department of Commerce. They'll take comments and questions from the City Council, and then the podium will be open for public comment.
Thank you. So I will turn this part of the presentation over to our guests from Department of Commerce. And does the City Hall look like we saw through your cameras and the computer?
It looks much more beautiful
Very
in
good.
person.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And also, will the presentation be up on the side? Wonderful. I just want to make sure that you guys have the information behind me as well to hear and see. So thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Laura Hodgson. I am the Housing Planning and Data Manager at the Department of Commerce in the Growth Management Services Unit. And my name is Laura Hodgson. I'm here from the Department of Commerce, and I'm here with Ann Fritzl, the Housing Section Manager. In our roles, we help communities plan for their growth that they have over the next 20 years under the framework of the Growth Management Act, which is intended to help concentrate growth in areas where there's infrastructure and investments, and then help to preserve our rural and resource areas. So today, can you go to the next slide, please? Can everybody hear me in the back? I just saw yes nods. Okay, great. So today I'm here to share a little bit about the Housing Accountability Act. It's a new program authorized by the legislature last year. Then I would like to talk about the review and approval process of jurisdictions who are under that Housing Accountability Act program, including Bainbridge Island. Then I would like to share a little bit about our review of Bainbridge Island's work under this new framework and provide updates on the next steps for this process. After that, I will take questions from the City Council, and then we will hear feedback from you today. Part of the reason that we are here today is to hear feedback from builders, developers, and stakeholders of the community so that we can understand your concerns and questions about this program. This is the first year we've implemented this program, and we would like to get your feedback. And more importantly, we would like you to hear your feedback on specifically Bainbridge Island's plan and the requirements that we need to review under this plan. And we're holding this joint public hearing tonight so that we can have it with the City Council, who will be making the decisions on your city's comprehensive plan and development regulations. They will be the authoritative body deciding what your city will then have as a vision and implementing documents moving forward. So that's why we have it, both of us here tonight. With that, we can go to the next slide, please. So in 2025, the legislature passed a new bill called Senate Bill 5148. This bill gives the Department of Commerce authority to review, provide technical assistance, and determine compliance of local jurisdictions, plans, and regulations under the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act prior to this bill has primarily been a framework where jurisdictions, plans, and regulations are considered valid upon adoption. With this new plan framework, there is an additional lens to review certain jurisdictions that either voluntarily or are selected to be reviewed to ensure that all of the jurisdictions, plans, and regulations are aligning with our state goals. So the goal is under this framework to comply with the state housing laws, which we'll talk more about on the next slide. And the scope of the review includes the housing element of the comprehensive plan and the housing related development regulations under this framework. Next slide, please. Under this framework, there are two pathways for Commerce to provide review of jurisdictions, plans, and regulations. There's a voluntary path where jurisdictions can voluntarily opt in for review. If jurisdictions opt in for review, then they receive technical assistance, and then they receive what we call appeals coverage or protection. If, for instance, their plan or regulation is appealed because it is determined question that the validity is questioned. There's also a selected review program which authorizes Commerce to review up to 10 jurisdictions, plans, and regulations a year for alignment with these plans and the state framework of planning. Under this framework, Commerce selected 8 jurisdictions in this first year of the program. This is the first year we've run this program, so there's a little bit of a learning curve here. But we selected Bainbridge Island based on selected criteria that the state provided. The state told us that we need to use 3 criteria for moving forward. We heard from stakeholders that the first criteria is the one we should use for the first few years, and that is if jurisdictions have not planned for and accommodated their share of the countywide housing needs. And since Bainbridge had not yet adopted their comprehensive plan and development regulations, it was one of the few jurisdictions who had not done so, and it was eligible for selection. So the city received that letter that it was identified for selected review in January. Next slide, please. After the jurisdictions who received the notice of selected review were identified, the Department of Commerce requested the jurisdiction's latest materials that were under the purview of this program. That included the housing element of the comprehensive plan and housing development regulations. We reviewed these items for consistency with the state requirements that all jurisdictions under the GMA are subject to, under the Growth Management Act are subject to. And we developed a preliminary report identifying where areas of the city's plans or regulations did not align with the state requirements developed by the legislature. The city has worked diligently in amending its plan and regulations to address these comments, and I want to congratulate the City Council and the Planning Commission and all of you stakeholders who've been involved in this process. You've worked very hard, and it's very evident in the work that that has been submitted to Commerce, because under the Growth Management Act, jurisdictions also need to provide notice of their intent to adopt their comprehensive plan and development regulations to Commerce. The City of Bainbridge Island did that on May 14th, 2026, and we reviewed again for alignment with those requirements so we could point out any inconsistencies that might still need to be addressed. And in our review, we found very few. Most of the items that we identified in our preliminary report had been addressed. The city received that letter on July 13th. However, because this is a process where we are going to be making a formal decision from Commerce's perspective on compliance, and because the legislature directed us to get direct feedback from developers, builders, and stakeholders, we are holding a joint public hearing here tonight to collect your feedback that would inform our decision, but more importantly, help inform the city's decision as it makes its final adoption choices as it moves forward. Moving forward, the city will then make its final decisions and adopt its comprehensive plan and development regulations. It adopts a periodic update of a comprehensive plan every 10 years with minor annual amendments every year and development regulations as needed. So this will be a culmination of a lot of work. After the city adopts its comprehensive plan and development regulations, we then review for final consistency check, which we're hoping for all of our jurisdictions shows compliance and alignment with the state requirements. Next slide, please. If for some reason that final review results in any items that are inconsistent with the requirements of the state statute, or if the amendments are not adopted within that 120 days or any timelines and extensions that are granted by the Department of Commerce if requested by the city, then there are some implications that happen for the city. Generally speaking, all jurisdictions who have not adopted their comprehensive plan periodic update in time for the may not be eligible for certain grants, loans included in the citation on the second bullet. In addition, there is a new that kind of kicks in if jurisdictions do not adopt amendments in time or do not adopt amendments consistent. And that is what we call the builder's remedy. This was developed to build off of California's program that allows for, in those jurisdictions where amendments still need to be made to align with the state requirements, affordable housing must be allowed in specific instances if it is needed for the project to be viable. There are some situations where an affordable housing project can be denied or additional conditions can be placed on those projects, but only in those items listed in the 3 bullets. So if that is the case, those are the consequences. But as soon as the jurisdiction adopts a plan that is consistent with those, with the state requirements, then these penalties or these consequences are off the table and the jurisdiction can proceed per normal. Next slide, please. So under the Growth Management Act, there's lots of different requirements that the state has implemented because they want to ensure the great quality place that we all love and call home in Washington. The first and foremost is the housing planning goal that we're looking at today. And the goal of the state is for jurisdictions to plan for and accommodate affordable housing for all economic segments, promote a variety of residential densities and housing typologies, and encourage preservation of existing housing stock. The state would like people who want to live in Washington to be able to live in Washington. And that is one thing, an overarching goal that we look for in this process. It's very broad, and it has helped to be, the state helps implement it through the various programs that you'll see in the next few bullets. The state implements this goal through the requirements in the housing element. The housing element now, based on new requirements in 2021, requires jurisdiction to identify what its future growth needs are for housing, make sure that it has enough land for those housing needs, and that it allows the types of housing that might be built to serve those households of a variety of different income levels. It also requires jurisdictions to look at the barriers to affordable housing. There's a lot of things that prevent affordable housing in our communities, most of which local jurisdictions cannot control. They do control land use issues and regulations. So the legislature directs jurisdictions to look at what those barriers are and take action on those. They also ask jurisdictions to look at what are the policies and regulations that have led to racially disparate impacts, exclusion, and displacement, and develop policies to prevent that moving forward. Next slide, please. Under our review, we are also required to review for certain development regulations. The legislature has required all states in Washington to meet a variety of different requirements. These are the specific ones that it thinks are important for this Housing Accountability Act. These include that the jurisdiction allow emergency shelter, transitional housing, emergency housing, and permanent supportive housing, which we call STEP. So housing for our most vulnerable residents who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. It requires us to review that the jurisdiction has allowed co-living housing. Co-living housing is a new form of housing. Well, it's actually not a new form of housing. It's been around for centuries, but the term is new. And what it means is an independent lockable room where people share a kitchen. And I don't know about you, but when I was first young, I lived in a co-living situation for many, many years. It's one of the most affordable types of housing. And it's required in some places in jurisdictions as of 2025. Jurisdictions also have to allow religious organization properties to allow more dense development on their property if the housing is affordable housing. That's that density bonus requirements. They also need to allow some parking regulation waivers that allow for parking to be less expensive for development. And then they need to make sure that they actually have regulations on the books. So the zoning that will allow that affordable housing that they plan for in their comprehensive plan to be built. In the case of Bainbridge Island, there are two other requirements that we generally check for, but Bainbridge Island is not required to adhere to those requirements. And those are accessory dwelling units. Under the state law, all cities and urban growth areas are required to allow 2 accessory dwelling units per lot. Bainbridge Island is not subject to that requirement, so we are not reviewing for that. And then also under the state law, some jurisdictions are required to allow more modest density housing that is on the scale of single-family homes, but is normally more than one home on a lot. Again, not subject to a Bainbridge Island. Next slide, please. And in closing, we also have to review for a few administrative things. We need to review for consistency with the State Environmental Policy Act. So making sure that you're considering the environmental impacts of your choices, of your plans. Check that your plans and regulations are consistent with our Washington Administrative Code, which is our guidance for administering the state statutes and laws, and that the comprehensive plan is internally consistent. I realize that is a mouthful, but the state has felt it's important recently to develop a lot of requirements that for our faster growing areas, understanding that if we allow more housing, we're hoping that more of it will be affordable, and it most likely will be if we allow more housing. And with the next slide, I'd like to walk through our preliminary review. In the interest of time, I'm going to try to go quickly because this is a lot of material. So in our preliminary review, again, this is the letter that we submitted to Bainbridge Island on April 23rd. We found inconsistencies in a number of areas. We found that the city still needed at that time to identify how it would accommodate all of its housing needs, that it was allocated from the county, and that some minor changes were needed to the methodology and analysis for emergency housing. The city also needed to identify what are those local areas in its development regulations that were potentially causing barriers to affordable housing being built, and identify what funding tools and incentives could help the city to get there. The jurisdiction also needed to document how its policies were evaluated for contribution to racially disparate impacts, exclusion, and displacement, and implement those changes, which they had done. We just needed to see the work for that. Next slide, please. We also needed to see those areas that were at risk of displacement. As we're planning for new housing, we don't want to displace residents who may not choose to move. So that is one goal of the Growth Management Act. We also needed to see the city complete its SEPA work, or State Environmental Policy Act work, which it is intertwining and doing as it works through its comprehensive plan and development regulations. And then we also needed to see a few updates to see that the other elements of the comprehensive plan were consistent with the growth plan. So we wanted to see that the capital facilities element included a forecast for future needs and locations for system-wide improvements that wouldn't be done by individual project developers, so that we understood that there was a plan for the system-wide improvements that the city typically helps to fund as a part of providing services to the city, and that the utilities was also being planned for those additional growth. Next slide. Finally, there were some changes that were needed to the development regulations. The city had not yet had a chance to spend a lot of time on updating its development regulations. So the preliminary report reflects that prior to a lot of the city work, what was still outstanding. And these were a lot of the changes that the legislature adopted recently. So those included the requirement to allow step housing, so emergency housing and emergency shelters in certain zones, and permanent supportive housing and transitional housing in certain zones, understanding that we need all forms of housing to meet our housing needs. Allow co-living in those areas where 6 multifamily residential units or mixed use were allowed, and allow more flexibility for certain parking regulations to encourage more affordable housing by way of reducing parking costs. And lastly, to provide sufficient land capacity. So to implement those changes that identified to make sure that enough housing could be built in the future should developers come to Bainbridge Island and decide to build. Next slide. So we are a good way through the process. We submitted the preliminary report comments to the city in April. They then worked very diligently and addressing a lot our review of their pre-adoption materials, outlining a few additional items that might still need to be completed. And then we are looking forward to the city adopting by August 21st or as soon as possible. Again, if the city is not able to adopt by August 21st and we are not able to offer the extension of time, which the city has requested as of Monday, the builder's remedy applies until it does adopt a plan and regulations that are consistent. Then once we receive that adopted material, we will review for consistency and very hopefully submit a finding of compliance. So with that, we are almost near the finish line. We recognize all of the work that the city has done and all of the important discussions that they've had, but we wanted to offer this time for the public to share their feedback. Before we do so, however, I would like to turn this back to the chair or interim city manager for council questions, and then we will turn it to you for a public hearing. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, Laura. And thank you for all your work. I've heard you've cooperated very well with our staff, and I hope you found them to be great to work with too. I believe they're quality people. City manager has nothing to add. I will take lights as I saw them in order. I believe it was, why don't I just move down the line this way? It's easier. I'll start with Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos and work down the line. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
So I have a comment and a question. The comment actually is just generally, and of course I encourage representatives from Commerce to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's an important clarification that while this is called a joint public hearing, this is a piece of Commerce's process. We're hosting this. We're obviously listening to for all the work we're continuing to do, but I think it's really important to see us not as a unified body up here, but actually a body hosting another body. Some of us actually feel a bit at odds with Commerce and have said so in previous interactions. So I think that's really important for us to clarify. And I guess the question is, are you taking comment from council as well? Or are you taking comment just from from the community? Obviously, we've had a chance to dialogue with you before, but I think we should probably know that before we head down the road.
Yes, I think that in the interest of learning and developing this program, we would love to hear from council. We are interested in hearing in how we can make this process better and support jurisdictions with the ultimate goal of meeting the state's framework under the Growth Management Act and supporting local vision. So
thank you,
yes,
Laura.
please.
Thank you, Laura. Deputy Mayor.
Then I'm going to make my brief comment. I didn't prepare anything because I never thought of it this way, but I'm going to sort of repeat what I've said before, which is I have found it very frustrating that when this first started, when we first came under this umbrella and we knew we'd be working with Commerce, well, even before that, that it felt like, oh, I was jaded. It's just going to be about creating a bunch of just upzonings capacity without any teeth. We won't get any affordable housing, but we'll get a bunch of upzoning. And we went through that brief period of time where it felt like Commerce was starting to there was some teeth coming into it. And I was feeling good about it, that we were going to be able to come up with a product that even as we did any upzoning, that upzoning would bring with it the affordability we heard we need from the person who was at public comment today. In fact, that person would fall at that wage at 37% of area median income. And this is for my council as well as the community. And we aren't doing really anything to create any 30% area median income. What we're doing and what Commerce is okay with so far, and that's the gist of my comment, and I find very frustrating, is we're being forced to upzone to create capacity that will be able to be used by market rate development. And surely, since that's where the profits lie, that's where we'll go. So I'm very frustrated by that. And when I hear someone come in here who believes that they are supporting what this council is doing and what Commerce is asking us to do because they might have housing, that's not what this is. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Please, no response. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Matthews.
Thanks, Mayor. And thank you for being here. Just a couple questions. So when you mentioned the voluntary path, and I was just curious if there were any jurisdictions who had opted in or volunteered for the review. And if a jurisdiction does volunteer are they subject to the same sort of housing or builder's remedy and those sort of things? Or is it just helping the jurisdiction through the process? I'm just thinking of the fact that we're starting a new process right now, I believe, for the new comprehensive plan process, even though we haven't finished our end. And so if it was truly bringing the city through the process, if like raising our hand to ask for help initially would be the thing to do or not. So I was just curious about that. And then unfortunately, the implications are real. We did find out Friday or Thursday that the stormwater grant for almost $800,000 that we were looking forward to for a project had been rescinded. So we do not have that anymore. And so it's no surprise seeing now that August 21st is, if we don't have our plan adopted by then, that the builder's remedy will apply. And we all know that we're not going to have our plan by August 21st. So that means that we're going to have a window of the builder's remedy applying. What does that mean? So if a developer wants to build affordable housing and August 21st, that date comes, how soon after that does the builder's remedy take effect? And what can they do if, say, we get our plan in by October or November, then the builder's remedy ends then, am I right? Okay, I'm trying to get, yeah. All right.
So on your first question, 2 jurisdictions have submitted requests for voluntary review. They are what we call 2026 jurisdictions. So the periodic update is due December of 2026. They are in review right now. The same consequences do not apply with regard to the builder's remedy. Initially, we thought so, but there's specific language that does not require them to be subject to the builder's remedy. They are still would be subject to losing grants and loans. So that is universal. With regard to the builder's remedy, the builder's remedy would allow an applicant to come in and submit a development proposal application for a project and ask for waivers of certain regulations that it felt were preventing it from being able to build the affordability levels that were required to be affordable projects under the law. And that is 60% and 10% of units at 60% rental, 60% AMI and 80% homeownership, 20% of units at, I think this is the numbers, 20% of units at 80 and 100, or all units at workforce housing for 25 years. So they could come in and ask for waivers of those regulations that would allow them to build that project.
Councilmember Fowler Johnson.
Hi, thank you for coming. You mentioned that we had already asked for an extension. Did you grant us that?
We just received the extension on Monday morning, so we are reviewing that. We should have an answer to the city within a week.
Okay. And then you mentioned that the SEPA review was a part of some documents that you already reviewed.
So we are required to review for SEPA procedural completeness, so that just that you completed all of the steps that you needed to do for SEPA with the comprehensive plan, not that we are reviewing your SEPA for accuracy. We're just reviewing that you followed the steps outlined in chapter 4321 of the state statute.
But that's enough to get past that.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there more? Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment about the grant that we lost, that there was also a grant that we wanted, that because we are late, we were advised not to even apply for it. So these consequences of not having our plan in place are real.
Thank you, Councilmember Fowler Johnson. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, thank you for being here first off. So I think a comment and a question. My comment is, I do hope you will extend the deadline, right? Because I think you've seen how hard we've been working to try to get there. And I think I share the deputy mayor's frustration, because the reason this is taking us so long is that we keep trying to craft a plan that actually creates affordable housing and not just market rate upzone. right? And as we've gone through the process more and more, we keep finding the only thing that's going to count towards the land capacity that you need is market rate upzoning, because it's all about typology, not actual affordable housing. We tried looking at publicly owned land and subsidies. That doesn't count. We're now having a problem where we've crafted 2 different mandatory inclusionary zoning programs, but our consultants are saying it's virtually impossible to figure out what kind of units that would create. And so it keeps coming back to this idea that the only way we can get to compliance is market rate upzoning, when I think what we want to do is, when we're giving away that density, we want a public benefit, right? And in particular, affordable housing. And so that is why it's taking us so long, is we keep going back to this to actually get results and to not just have market rate upzoning. Because in a community like ours, it's not going to solve the problem that community members keep raising with us. And that's the issue. So that's my comment. And then a very specific question, which is commerce, and I actually am fine with the builder's remedy as written. 25% are affordable and it has to be approved, 50% workforce, it has to be approved, or all moderate income, which is up to 120% AMI, have to be approved. That seems reasonable. It's not an issue with that. My question is commerce actually taking the position that it does apply to us? And the reason I ask this is because if you look at slide 8 of your presentation, you mentioned that the ADU regulations don't apply to us. And if you look at RCW 3670A 681-4, the reason for that is because critical areas, right? And critical areas is in fact the exact same language that's used as an exemption to the builder's remedy in RCW 3670A 835-11A3. And so I would encourage you to look at that because I think there should be consistency between those two. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Laura, any comment? I mean, I'm really trying to be patient. This is not something we allow. We're having a business meeting, and this is our work. This is not for that feedback. Please refrain. Thank you.
Just to clarify on the critical areas piece, yes, we do realize it is the same piece, but it's under a different framework of statute with regard to allowing affordable housing. And so in consultation with our Attorney General, we did collaborate. We determined that it is important that critical areas still be maintained. So a jurisdiction we interpret that to mean that a jurisdiction would still be able to uphold its regulations that support and maintain that critical area resource. But outside of that, so long as they can meet those requirements, development still needs to be allowed. So it doesn't mean that you can't allow development. You just have to allow development that is protective of those critical areas. And with regard to inclusionary zoning, we recognize that it's very difficult to craft an inclusionary zoning program that actually results in inclusionary zoning. And if there were a silver lining and a way to do that in every community, we probably already would have it in place. So we applaud your work for doing that, and we encourage you to keep doing that. And it's difficult, and under our framework, we have to provide and account for what is likely to happen. And if a program is not mandatory, it may not result in affordable housing. So we have to take that into consideration and when we review for that. So thank you for your feedback.
Thanks very much. Councilmember Land.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And you're like a walking encyclopedia of things that are fresh and new to you, as well as to us and many other communities. So thank you for being here in person to have this joint public hearing. It's very much appreciated. I had a couple questions and a comment regarding the aspect of regionality. How does Commerce consider regionality in some aspects of housing that it makes no sense to cut and paste for every jurisdiction? For example, the YWCA shelter that's located in Bremerton. People from our residents have used that, are using it, unfortunately, but fortunate that it's there. Until we can create something of our own, that is a place that we will be supporting. Is that taking into account about, for example, a place like that?
So when the legislature directed communities to plan for all economic segments. So prior to 2021, we were just planning for housing units. A housing unit is a housing unit. It didn't matter how much you made. And that left people out paying more than they should or without homes themselves. So the legislature directed us to plan for housing of all economic segments. It directed the Department of Commerce to project those housing needs. We projected them at the county-wide level, understanding that local jurisdictions in coordination with the counties that they're in have the best understanding of the constraints about where housing to go in their communities. So the Department of Commerce created projections of housing need at the county level and allowed counties to work with cities to determine where that, moving forward, those are collaborative decisions that are made together and that should take into account unique circumstances of each community, whether that's infrastructure, resources, critical areas, nonprofit providers, and things like that. So we defer to you guys for that decision.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Councilwoman?
I do. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you for that, because that is the relationship with Kitsap County that helped decide how we would take our share of all the numbers that we're looking at. So I recognize that. I just wanted to kind of throw that one out there. I also wanted to just, this is my comment, that just in future, I think it would be more appealing or less threatening to residents of any jurisdiction when you talk about the public in general, when you talk about developers, builders, and other stakeholders. They're all stakeholders. Why call out developers and builders specifically? And that feels like we're going somewhere that a lot of people are like, I knew it. So, and maybe that was
because it's in the statute.
right. Yes. Yeah, that's really ugly. And I appreciate that.
They're the ones that built the affordable housing. So,
Absolutely.
But yes, we want all of the public to comment on this process.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And last but not least, I'm going to get back to one question I had last time you were here, which is water-based living units and how water-based versus land use and that those capacities can be looked at.
Yes. So people can live in sailboats or other types of on-water residences. Those existing units are included in existing units of housing in the community. Moving forward, any new capacity for on water-based living needs to abide by the Shoreline Management Act. And new capacity for on water living is unlikely given the Shoreline Management Act. So we don't recommend jurisdictions plan for that, given that constraint. However, if that constraint were not to be there, that would be a possibility. So we do recommend jurisdictions look broadly at all things, but that is one that tends to not be a promising avenue for new housing because we want to preserve and maintain our ecological functions in our shoreline management areas.
Thank you very much. Council, I'm planning to go through this again if you would wish. If there's no other Councilor Matt.
Oh, I just had one question that I forgot to ask. It had to do with SEPA, because I noticed it is called out there, which is good. And I was wondering if, because part of that process is a 30-day comment period, once we get through the final EIS and our SEPA requirements, I think part of that's a 30-day comment period. Would that make it possible for an extension to comply with that of the 30 days?
That was listed in one of the reasons for the extension, and we will consider that in that.
Your mic is not on. You have to turn your mic on.
Sorry, I thought I hit the button. Yes, SEPA is a requirement. It does have public comment periods, and that was included in the city's request for extension, so we will consider that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Councilor
You. The city of Bainbridge does not accept applications until they are complete. And so if there is a builder's remedy in place as of August 22nd, for example, and builders and developers requested waivers, would the city have to honor the waivers until their application was complete, even if the window of the builder's remedy closed before their application was complete?
The application needs to be complete and include a request for the variances or the waivers that it would need to ensure the affordability if it needs it. If it doesn't need the waiver, then it can just apply per normal circumstances. So, and hopefully that's the case in most circumstances. But if not, then they, as long as they have a complete application, and it just needs to be procedurally complete under the new laws. And with any other specific permitting questions, I'm going to have to refer to my permitting expert, but I think hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Councilmember Franklin Johnson. Oh, did you put your line on? Did you have something to say?
Okay.
I saw you flip. Okay, Councilmember Franklin Johnson.
I have a question about the step housing. Did you say that, well, I guess what I'm thinking about is the step housing, does that have to be, it's like a crazy question. If we don't have any step housing, will we get approved?
So the requirement for step housing is that step housing has to be allowed in certain zones within the
Or it
state.
just has to
It
be-
doesn't have to be built, it doesn't have to be funded, it just needs to be allowed.
Okay, because we're so focused on the affordable housing. I just wanted to make sure that when this comes up, when we start talking about developing enough step housing, I'm not even sure how much we need. Are we already in compliance with that, you're telling me? I'm sorry, I can't. Yeah.
Thank you.
Never mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, sorry, real brief, which is, if the builder's remedy does go into effect, does it stay into effect until the date at which you rule the plan compliant or until the date at which we submit it?
The date at which we submit, determine it compliant.
Okay, thank you.
And luckily, we've reviewed a lot of the material, so we're hoping that that window is less than the 90 days we've allotted us. But once you submit, we have 90 days to determine that.
Okay, well, accept our good faith in trying to get this done and just go ahead and extend that deadline, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. And you each had a second chance. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, would you like to have a second question?
I wasn't going to because you all want to have a chance to say something, but I would fill in a little history on what happened with how we wound up with these allocations the way they were because I was there. And I will say that all of the jurisdictions were like a deer in headlights, honestly, all of our sister, brother, whatever jurisdictions in Kitsap. And Commerce did offer, I believe, 2 or 4, somewhere between 2 and 4 options of approaches. And one of them was an approach where we could have done more tailoring and both were afraid they wouldn't comply. I can't remember exactly how that worked. And they went with more of a population allocation, sort of like a ratio to the population allocations, which as we obviously means there wasn't any tailoring to the specifics of the different jurisdictions being different natured. And so I think we've learned our lesson there for sure. But there was a lot of fear, I think, in being adventurous and fine tuning it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Yeah, I have a follow-up on the step, but you talked about emergency housing and said it wasn't unit, it was beds. So it's a multi-pronged question. I haven't dug into the revised Code of Washington or our zoning, so it might be in there for the answer. So what is you look at a area, let's say this place here, and we could put in 40 beds. Is that something in the plan? And is that would mean that we're identifying areas of which these number of beds could be placed? And that also be our sister places like school districts, fire district, the library, or perhaps churches. I mean, there's large places that are heated and air conditioned that could hold beds. So I'm just wondering what that definition and how that is cleared.
Yes, so the way that our housing division measures the capacity for emergency housing is in beds. So to be consistent with the way it is actually implemented on the ground, we recommend jurisdictions analyze capacity based on beds. We recommend they evaluate not only land that is vacant or underutilized, but they could also identify existing buildings that are likely to convert and become emergency housing. And we have that in our methodology and our guidance for how to do that if you think that is something that is likely in your jurisdiction.
Thank you. So any other comments, folks? So I'd like to open it up for just comments from the public. Please limit yourself to 3 minutes. Identify yourself at the podium. Just move up. Thank you. Just move to the podium and identify yourself, and please limit your comments at 3 minutes. These are just comments. They're not going to answer your questions, just comments to them. Thank you.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, just a few things for, a lot of it'll be a reminder for the city council, but I want to make sure everybody in the audience understands these things. The Growth Management Act has two very important parts in it that really apply to an island. In the final analysis, when we are looking at growth, and we are pro-growth, we are pro-affordable housing. I'm digressing here, but there's a colleague of mine, Nora Masters, who made a very good list of all the affordable housing projects we've done recently. And I'm going to give you my card, and if you can give me your address, your email, I'll send it to you. So I think that's important context. But anyway, the Growth Management Act talks about a municipality's unique circumstances. In the final analysis, how we grow, how we do housing, it's up to us, and it relies on what our resources are. It's not just water. I'm a water guy, okay? I'm talking about economic resources, and you know this, okay? But it bears repeating. So, we have these unique circumstances. We have a situation here where we're 28 square miles. We have Bainbridge Island Municipal Code, and we have state law that protects recharge areas. And in the Bainbridge Island Municipal Code, as my colleague Ron Peltier was pointing out, it requires no net loss of recharge area for development more than a half acre. And if it's less, and there's a lot of that, we're losing recharge, when we put in these housing developments and we have like these quarter acres, okay? And there's no enforcement of that. So I'm just saying it's more of an acute problem, like Mary Claire Kirsten was saying. We're an island. We're only 28 square miles. So, we need money to do this. We are making some progress with affordable housing. And I'm getting out of my lane a little bit because I'm always talking about water, but everything kind of a lot of these things come back to water. Here's the thing. Most of our money comes from property tax. Over half of our money pays staff. We have a staff of 140 people. If you do the research, and you can do it different ways, and you can look at the references on AI and everything, our staff is too big. You should implore City Council, Department of Commerce experts, to get on some kind of 5-year plan to stop hiring. If we can get our staff down to 120, we're going to have more money in the general fund. We have land already, and we can buy land. It's going to free up a lot of money because I'm not saying lay off people. I'm saying when people retire, we need to stop hiring, get that number down, because it's going to free up some more money, and we can actually do even more affordable housing. Okay, so that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. And I apologize to the 12 or so people that signed up. I didn't have the sheet before me, but it's a special night for Malcolm, so of course you should get to speak first. So please, I'll say 2 names, and I will have the first person come up. The second name, please be ready to speak. The first is Eric Ludwig, and the second is Ron Peltier.
Good evening to the members of the Bainbridge Island City Council and the Commerce Department. Thanks for holding this hearing. I'm here on behalf of the Bainbridge Island Chamber of Commerce, Board of Directors, and our membership of more than 300 businesses operating on the island, including one of the largest employers on the island, Fairbanks Sage Manufacturing, where I serve as the Director of Operations. We are pleased to express our support for the approval of the comprehensive plan with the goal of aligning with the Housing Accountability Act. The Chamber believes that recent changes, including increases to base and bonus density to attract more private funding for housing, and especially affordable housing, represents a reasonable and important step towards ensuring Bainbridge Island remains a vibrant, economically resilient, and inclusive community well into the future. We ask the council to approve the recent changes to the sub-area plan and move forward with a comprehensive plan without delay. As advocates for local businesses, we see firsthand the challenges facing employers of all sizes across the island. Businesses, nonprofits, healthcare providers, schools, and public agencies increasingly struggle to recruit and retain employees because many workers cannot afford to live in the community they serve. Expanding housing opportunities and supporting a wide range of housing types are essential, not only for meeting state requirements, but for maintaining a healthy local economy, a diverse community, and a sustainment of the services and amenities that residents depend on and enjoy. To help make the comp plan's vision a reality, the Chamber also specifically supports the following specific provisions: increasing the base area floor area ratio to 1.0 in the central, core, ferry terminal, and high school road zones without restriction. Also, increasing the bonus area floor area ratio for affordable housing developments to 3.0 in the central core and 4.0 in the ferry terminal and high school road zones. Multiple local developers and the city's own 2019 Eco Northwest report agree that a FAR of at least 3.0 and ideally 4.0 or higher are required to attract private funding to support development of affordable housing projects in these zones. Given the island's tepid growth for prohibitive cost of living for many, a substantial amount of new affordable housing is a prerequisite for protecting the vitality of our local economy and the diversity of our community. Attracting private funding is the most plausible way to ensure that needed affordable housing developments actually get built. The Chamber believes the importance of additional affordable housing is important to the health of the island's economy, and it cannot be overstated. A strong local economy goes hand in hand with a diverse and thriving community. Employers need workers, schools need families, businesses need customers, and residents need access to healthcare and basic services. We believe development regulations that encourage private funding for a wide range of housing types, and especially affordable housing, can provide a framework for achieving these goals while maintaining the values and quality of the island residents cherish. Without them, though, we fear continuation of the status quo, stagnant or declining population growth, combined with ever-rising labor, real estate, and transportation costs that cause island services and businesses to relocate or close. On behalf of our membership, we respectfully encourage the City Council to make our requested changes to the sub-area plan in alignment with the Housing Accountability Act and bring this long debated part of the process to a close. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Ron Peltier, followed by Mary Claire Kirsten. Again, 3 minutes, please.
Any council again? Does it feel a little stuffy to anyone else? It seems like we need a little more oxygen in here. I'm going to expend a little bit right now. So I have something I want to read, but I want to respond to a couple of things I heard from their commerce representatives here. You talk about housing requirements as if they exist in a vacuum. That's how it sounds, but they're part of the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act has a lot of requirements, and one of the sections of the Growth Management Act leave it up to local jurisdictions to use local circumstances to decide how to balance all those requirements. Those requirements include protection of critical areas, including critical aquifer recharge, protection of groundwater, and adequate infrastructure to support development. I'm also concerned about comments you made about critical areas and related to the builder's remedy. I read the statute a number of times, and it clearly prohibits the builder's remedy in critical areas. You're interpreting that with a totally different take on that. You're not legislators. Either is the Attorney General. He is not a legislator. You don't get to change the Growth Management Act. You might get to interpret it, but the 3670A 835 is pretty clear. It prohibits builder's remedy in critical areas. There's no ambiguity about it. So as I stated earlier, Bainbridge Island is the only sole source aquifer island city in State. I know people don't like it when we say we're unique, but we are. City Council recently approved a new groundwater management plan. It's been over 10 years in the works. And here's a quote from the executive summary. Because these actual values cannot be known with certainty, and this is a reference to the plan's estimate for sustainable yield and current water use, it is not possible to say definitively if the current usage is sustainable or unsustainable. That's a significant statement from something that resulting from years of study that should not be taken lightly. So I want to talk a little bit about critical aquifer recharge, or CARAs. They're one of the 5 critical areas identified by the Growth Management Act for protection from loss of ecological function. The entirety of Bainbridge Island is a critical aquifer recharge area. The entirety of Bainbridge Island is a critical aquifer recharge area. I want to make sure you heard that. The Department of Commerce's claim that our status as a CAR is basically a nothing burger. It's not a defensible position and flies in the face of state law clearly requiring protection of CARs. I encourage City Council not to be bullied by the Department of Commerce. Their skewed interpretation of the Growth Management Act and their arbitrary marginalization of the island's status as a critical aquifer recharge area with a finite carrying capacity is not acceptable. So I want to talk a little bit about creating affordable housing on Bainbridge Island. This isn't just a supply and demand thing where we zone for a bunch of housing and we're going to get affordability. Again, we heard somebody talk about their need for affordable housing. This market rate housing is not going to provide people like her with affordable housing. It's just not going to. I've lived here since 1965, and I've seen a lot of development on this island, and it's only gotten more expensive. The only way housing is going to be affordable here is if it's 100% subsidized. As Kirsten Hytopoulos, council member, and council member Nelson have proposed, you're not going to get affordable housing through market rate. You just aren't. By saying otherwise is not being honest with people. So the planning commission spent.
Ron, you're a minute over.
I almost got 4 minutes there. All right, I think I've covered my bases. Thanks for listening. Have a great meeting.
Thank you, Ron. Ron, Mary Claire Kirsten, followed by Mary Kershaw. Okay. She's left. Huh? Okay, Rick. Then Benjamin Harrison and John Quitzland.
Good evening. My name is Benjamin Harrison, and I'm a resident of Rolling Bay. I'm a city volunteer on the Environmental Technical Advisory Committee, but I'm coming tonight in my individual capacity as a resident and a local professional in water resources and climate, not on behalf of any other entity. The Growth Management Act gives cities and counties broad responsibility to balance housing capacity with sustainable management of natural resources, but the GMA itself doesn't give local governments the means or incentive to actually achieve that balance. On Bainbridge, years of community investment and dedicated work that we've heard about already produced the city's adopted groundwater management plan. It's hard to find comparable examples anywhere else in the state of this kind of focused study on how growth and climate could impact water availability. But shouldn't that be the baseline expectation for growth planning generally, not an exception to that process? I want to highlight 3 takeaways from the plan. First, we are not certain, as was just mentioned, we are not certain current water use on the island is sustainable for both consumptive use and ecological preservation, even before growth and climate are factored into that equation. That's exactly the balance the GMA asks us to maintain in planning. Second, if every water right already granted on the island were fully developed, our use would clearly be unsustainable. That's not a likely scenario, but it shows the limits of the state's existing standard for what counts as sufficient water supply for GMA planning purposes. Third, and finally, we do have the means to make our water resources resilient to growth within the 20-year planning period and genuinely sustainable through careful management and real investment. In our small rainfall-dependent lowland watersheds, our most important lever is managing the landscape to enhance natural recharge alongside conservation and water recycling. We have no room for surface reservoirs and no mountains for snowpack, so preserving and enhancing natural space against development pressure isn't optional, it's structural. For the city, this means not just adopting the groundwater management plan, but actually implementing it. And it means fixing our transfer of development rights program so that growth in the urban core becomes a real mechanism for protecting the conservation area. For the state, this means coordinating with the Department of Ecology to guide the GMA balance of housing and water resources using the best available science and investing in the wastewater and stormwater infrastructure that lets us keep and reuse the fresh water we have instead of discharging it to the Sound. Our challenges are becoming increasingly common around Puget Sound as snowpack declines, so these solutions aren't just necessary for the city or county, but also for the sustainable future of the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. John Quitson, followed by Sarah Blossom.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, citizens. Good evening, Commerce representatives. I'm especially glad to be able to speak to Commerce representatives in person, and I'm speaking as an individual, like Benjamin Harrison. I'm also speaking as a former member of the Planning Commission for nine years, 3 terms, and 1 term on the City Council, in which time much of the work that we're dealing with now was at least initiated. And I'm grateful to Commerce, not only for this process, which I see to be essentially helpful and supportive of the city's interests, but also for all the funding that was provided. Our housing needs assessment was funded by Commerce and the housing action plan as well. We couldn't have done that without Commerce, and we wouldn't be where we are, knowing what we should all know from those studies. We wouldn't have the basis for what is called for now, because our housing needs assessment and the housing action plan established goals somewhat more ambitious than the goals that we're held to by the state and county authorities. And the reasons for what we're doing are apparent in the housing needs assessment, which I think will be incorporated by reference in the comprehensive plan. You've probably seen it and seen what is evident there. Also in attachment number 12 in the agenda packet that goes with our consideration in this item. Attachment 12 is Appendix G, an evaluation of racially disparate impacts, displacement, and exclusion. The information on which that analysis is based all comes from the housing needs assessment, and it demonstrates very clearly how important it is that we do what we're called upon to do here. The first 9 pages are based on those findings from the housing needs assessment. Further pages identify within the sub-area plan and the housing element those portions of those goals and policies that are supportive of the goals stipulated. So that's relevant. The other thing that interested me most in the agenda packet was Appendix F, which is number 11 in the list of items associated with this item on the agenda. I saw that there are 7 different exhibits listed in the cover page for this Appendix F, but only 2 of those exhibits are covered. Moderate density housing barrier review checklist. These are all checklists, and there's work yet to be done. I'm hoping that we'll learn in due time here where the city staff and others may be in the process of completing those checklists, because there's real substance in exhibits 1 and B1 and B2. The third is devoted to supplemental barrier review checklist for permanent and supportive housing and emergency housing. That is, I think, something that will need to be addressed and I see it as something that will come from a give and take with Commerce.
John, we're at 4 minutes. We should wrap this up.
Yes, that's enough. There are other exhibits that I assume are still in the works for our overburdened planning staff. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Sarah Blossom, then followed by Bevan Taylor.
Hello, Sarah Blossom, Planning Commissioner, but speaking as an individual. But I will speak to my experience on Planning Commission in this process. I don't want to be here. I'm tired. I'm tired of the process. I'm feeling defeated. I'm just generally feeling sorry for myself today. I thought, a really good meeting Thursday. I came out feeling really good. And then that buzz was killed on Monday at our steering committee meeting, when I found out that the mandatory program that we got finished up for you guys Thursday probably won't mean anything. And I guess I feel even more sorry to Councilmember Hytopoulos' comments earlier for the people who believed and had hope that this was actually about affordable housing, because it's clearly not. Everything we've done to try to ensure that some of the housing created through this is in fact affordable, none of it has mattered. We tried to create a voluntary program knowing that developers wouldn't use it, but wanting to create capacity for the city or other partners to be able to build those lower levels of income. But it doesn't count because a developer won't use it. But we also know developers aren't going to provide that housing. And so it just doesn't make sense to craft a program with developers in mind, knowing they're not going to use it. We've crafted a mandatory program that is, just hearing tonight about the builder's remedy, is actually our criteria in the mandatory program is consistent with the criteria for the builder's remedy. So I don't think it's out of line or burdensome. I hope the city council makes our time worth something. The 100+ hours we spent in meetings alone last year, significantly more than the city council spent in meetings last year. I hope you may act in a way that makes that time worth something. We were sent a survey. How can we value our volunteers? Make our time matter. That's how you can value your volunteers. I don't want to speak too strongly, but this is how I'm feeling, because I feel like we spent a year and a half now trying to put together the pieces of puzzle that were not intended to be put together. This feels like a farce. It's not about affordable housing, because everything we've done, Councilmember Nelson and I were the only ones at the steering committee, and he may be more optimistic than I am, but I came out of that meeting understanding the only way for us to comply is with market rate upzoning. And that will not, when you have 900 square foot ADUs selling for $1 million, that is not, the reality here on Bainbridge is more housing is not going to result in affordability. It's just not. And I also want to, I guess, tell you a word of caution. We had some members of the development community at our meeting. I don't want to quote anything because I didn't have a chance to go back and listen, but I came away with the impression that there's just not a desire in the development community to build affordable housing. And so my concern is, I understand the need to consult with the development community, but my concern is that any program we create, like a mandatory program that requires it, is going to be criticized, and we are going to be told it's not feasible because they don't want to do it. And so I was pleased to hear that our criteria is consistent with the builder's remedy. I don't think it's burdensome. I hope that you take feedback from developers with a grain of salt. I'll send a follow-up email when I have a chance to review the comments, but I was taken aback by some of what was said. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Followed by Bevan Taylor. Audience, please, I've really, the reason why we don't allow this is for the interruptions. We don't want people to feel either being supported or opposed. So this is a business meeting. It's not a public forum. Thank you, Bevan Taylor, and followed by Lisa Neal.
Good evening. My name is Bevan Taylor. I live on Bainbridge Island and I've worked various jobs in the local service industry. I want to extend my thanks to council and to the representatives from Commerce for giving progress towards meeting the Housing Accountability Act. When I think about housing accountability, I think about how the island's housing crisis is decades in the making. I think about how many of the people most affected by this crisis are not here in this room, nor have they been here through most of this process. Many have long commutes that take them off the island after work. Many have family responsibilities. Many are still at work right now. And some have simply lost hope that the island will ever truly welcome them. The words of a friend have been ringing in my ears for weeks. When asked what he thought of the ongoing debate of when, where, and how to build more affordable housing, he replied, "I don't feel like the people I serve want me to be their neighbor." I wish I could stand here and tell you that this is my first time hearing this statement. But the truth is, I've heard variations repeated over and over again by colleagues and coworkers in the island service industry. Does this mean that everyone on the island is hostile towards working class people? No. But Bainbridge Island does create, through policy choices and prevailing social attitudes, significant barriers to working class people. Regardless of whether this exclusion is intentional or not, the impact is real. It's true that feeling welcomed in a community is a complex matter. It goes beyond affordable housing. It is also true that affordability is a policy choice. Zoning changes and a new comprehensive plan won't make people feel welcome. But without robust policies and programs to increase the supply of affordable housing, many people will be pushed out as rents goes up, or will never have their chance to even have a chance to get their foot in the door. During the many months I've been following this process, I've thought about the dozens of friends who used to live here and had to leave, due at least in part to the cost of housing. I wonder how much more vibrant this community would be if they were still here, contributing their creativity, ingenuity, and bright spirits. It's difficult to quantify what the loss of the working class does to the soul of a place, but it is a loss for all of us, whether we realize it or not. I hope in another 20 years, we aren't still in this position. I ask that the Department of Commerce do what they can to ensure Bainbridge Island's next comprehensive plan will meaningfully increase the supply of affordable housing and of multifamily housing. I just want to end by saying that I feel incredibly angry to hear from members of council tonight and members of the community that they care about affordable housing when I listen to those same people fight tooth and nail against 625, which would have been 100% affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bevan. Lisa Neal, followed by Nora Masters.
Council, Lisa Neal, I live on Bainbridge Island. First, I want to start with a thank you. Councilmember Lant, you must have heard my head explode back there after the second commentary about builders and developers being the stakeholders. So I came here tonight because there's a public hearing on what exactly. Dawn Janow sent out an email on behalf of Responsible Bainbridge, and she lists the following work that's still outstanding. Hopefully I can get this called up. We need the key plan, we need the land capacity analysis done. Of course, we don't know what we're going to do, so we can't do a land capacity analysis yet. We don't have the key plan elements for the comp plan done, and they all need to work with the housing element. We don't have any mandatory inclusionary zoning evidently. I'm sorry to hear that that was shut down after the Plan Commission worked on that. We don't have a DEIS alternative that was selected, so we don't have a SEPA review that's been done. And that was just something that was specifically called out on one of the slides as is necessary. So we don't have those. We don't have an infrastructure analysis as far as what the unknown numbers in the unfinished land capacity analysis will require as far as infrastructure. I already said we need the SEPA review, but that depends on the final numbers and where the growth is going to happen. And of course, we don't know if the current water use is sustainable, much less water use for the number of people that we don't know how many are coming. How many people does Commerce demand that we add? We don't know. The land capacity is not done. The concurrency analysis hasn't been done. It's not just for infrastructure, it's for roads and everything else. So non-complete materials were submitted in May. They're still incomplete, completely incomplete. And yet here we are having a hearing on review of fluid and missing elements. I really am completely confused as to what we're doing here. Respectfully, how could the council adopt anything by August 21st that complies with anything? I can't even figure out what's going on here. I've asked people and nobody else knows either. As already has been mentioned, the plan for market rate upzoning, it's not going to do what's needed under 1220. Everybody knows that. To continue to pretend it's going to have a different result is it lacks any factual basis. So this process remains backward. It started out backward, it's still backward. We're excluding the citizens in favor of what builders say they need and want. The process has not been only chaotic, it's incomprehensible. It's lacked proper public citizen participation. And so this requirement that we take on market rate upzoning tells me the process and possibly the GMA provisions are wholly illegitimate. They purport to do something for one reason, but they're really doing it just for growth. It's just a full, it's a pro-builder statute, HB 1220. And if I was on council, I'd be pushing just do builder remedy, be done with it.
Thank you, Lisa. Nora Masters, followed by Stephen Hoskin.
Hi, I'm Nora Masters. Good evening, council members and Department of Commerce. It's interesting. I sent all of you an email with a lot of detail. So I have some detail to discuss, but I'm actually not going to discuss the detail because you have an email. And the Department of Commerce, it went to somebody that had their email on a letter. And so if you have not received it, I can get your email address and send it to you. And what I find super interesting listening to all the comments and all the discussion is a lot of people who care about different things are being named as not supportive of affordable housing. And just in this process of the comp plan, what I've seen is so many of us named not supportive of affordable housing actually fighting for affordable housing. And this whole discussion that Sarah brought up about mandatory inclusionary zoning and voluntary was discussed by the Department of Commerce. And the majority of us that I speak to, I can't speak to the majority of the city and the population, are wondering about the market rate upzoning without the give of affordable housing. And we had the Chamber of Commerce speak, and I don't know if that gentleman is still here, and the developers representing the economic impact and things that we also care about. But listening to, those that have lower opportunity or lower economic wherewithal, I think that a large number of the citizens and the people are fully supportive. And so I certainly want to recognize that we're here to help. Now, that being said, the other things I'm going to talk about you're going to say, no, she's not here to help. But in fact, I am. So my background is municipal government for 20 years. And then I went on and did another career. And my background is performance auditing, making sure governments get what they pay for. And in accordance to laws, in accordance to policy, and all of those things. And you will see that in my letter. However, I did look at Appendix G for the second time, and its evaluation of racially disparate impacts, displacement, and exclusion. And John spoke to it a little bit, and I'm fully supportive of that information or that analysis being represented in the comp plan as required. But in our specific one, what I find today and what I found when I reviewed it a couple months ago, and there are some changes and there's more information in there, but there's some disconnects in the analysis of what they are saying it says and what it actually does say. And so I'm not going to go into detail. You know, I'm already past my time, but it is in the email, it's in the letter. So I do hope you take a look at that. And I've offered services to help, to be available. It is my background. And so obviously I'm here to do that. The final thing, which how can we who are against 625 be for affordable housing? But there are many who have similar concerns as I do, and that is the risks that project brings to the city, the risks in the way that the developer was selected, the risks in the contracts, the risks in the way that the costs are mitigated and not mitigated. And so again, I have attached much more detail on that. Fully supportive of affordable housing all over in the places that it makes sense. But that particular project has a huge number of risks for this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Stephen Hoskins, followed by David Smith.
Good evening, Council and Commerce. Hello, Laura. Stephen Hoskins here. Sorry to be bothering you via email so frequently. Well, I'm a housing economist by profession. I live here in Winslow, pro-housing advocate here on the island. I want to speak a little bit to the context that this Housing Accountability Act is taking place in, and then a little bit to the specifics of how we got here. So the housing crisis is no secret. We know that there's a scarcity of housing in America. It's driven housing to historic levels of unaffordability. Homelessness, likewise, led to environmentally harmful sprawl, supercommuters, and a closing off of economic opportunity and upwards mobility. Likewise, in the economics literature, the causes are no surprise, no secret, actually. We know that it's due to exclusionary zoning. It's due to localist home voters lobbying their local governments to keep restrictive zoning in place, constraining the supply of housing, in particular multifamily housing. And actually, we know that this is predominantly a problem in high opportunity places, which is blue areas, liberal places, particularly in wealthy and white areas. This is why California has a declining population at the moment. And it's because of the political incentives. You get local governments, they only respond to the local voters. Most of them are homeowners. And so they say, I've got to do what my community wants me to do, and that means blocking housing. As a response, states have started to do what's called state zoning preemption. They're forcing local communities to make room for housing growth. And that is where the Housing Accountability Act comes from. It's where HB 1110 comes from, HB 1220, that is the sort of crux of why we're all here. So with that context acknowledged, Bainbridge is a prime example of why that is needed. We incorporated in 1991 in part to block growth. We've referred frequently to our sole source aquifer status to dodge other zoning preemptions. And because we were years late with complying with HB 1220, we got put under the HAA. In fact, last council elections were very heated, and it was entirely in opposition to upzoning, and in particular around that one affordable housing project. So we desperately need you to oversee this process and make sure that we actually do build affordable housing and make room for it, and multifamily housing. So despite all of that context, our failure to comply by August 21st will be entirely self-inflicted. In April, the council unanimously cut bonus density, which killed the viability of the voluntary inclusionary zoning program, shrank capacity below our target. In May, the Planning Commission learned that they needed to upzone for market rate to qualify with the multifamily housing targets, and they did it by calibrating to the decimal place base floor area ratios that they thought would get them to the bare legal minimum. Then in June, on June 12th, we got a fateful memo from LMN, which warned council that those decisions were going to produce a capacity shortfall. And with a narrow timeline in place, a 4-3 majority boldly decided to revert to the February land capacity analysis, which was complete, and we knew was compliant because you've reviewed it, and would have got us back on track with a timeline that would have got in place by August 21st, and everything would have been fine. For that, Council Member Nelson, who interestingly appealed to you to treat us as if we're acting in good faith, went to social media and publicly attacked his colleagues as having revealed that they don't actually care about affordable housing and encouraging efforts to defeat them in next year's elections. He's been not been secret about this. And of course, he left out the fact that the motivation behind that vote was to make sure that we got into our capacity target within the timeline required. And he also lambasted them for removing the mandatory inclusionary zoning program, again, because it was for those reasons of timeline and compliance. So we could have been compliant if not for those kind of arguments and this narrative that's spreading. Subsequent to that, I've been desperately trying to get council to pay attention to what that capacity analysis from June 12th says about what we have to do with lot minimums, our upzoning with the mandatory inclusionary zoning program, to come up with a compromise proposal that didn't have as much market rate upzoning in it, would have been compliant and would have done it by expanding the mandatory inclusionary zoning program. But I was ignored with that compromise approach, and instead the anti-growth 3, as I guess they are becoming, championed an effort to get council to go back to the bare minimum upzoning. And so when you get the next capacity numbers from this latest analysis, it's going to be a shortfall. So yeah, this is entirely self-inflicted. We brought ourselves to this situation. And I ask you to be skeptical of their request for extensions, to hold the line on requiring us to actually make multifamily capacity and a real plan to build affordable housing. All these complaints about how HB 1220 doesn't require us to actually build affordable.
Stephen, we're a minute and a half.
I'll wrap up in a second, Mayor. Those are going to be the people who oppose increased taxes to fund affordable housing. So it's just a farce. And to the council, when the next land capacity analysis comes back non-compliant, please go back to the February values. We know they are compliant. They're perfectly fine. Let's do it.
Thank you, Stephen. David Smith. Everybody else got to talk here.
Good evening, council people and Department of Commerce. And actually, affordable housing isn't hopeless. And that's what I'm going to present today. And in fact, Department of Commerce with the Housing Trust Fund and the council working with us, I'm a developer of affordable housing, and we developed the Wintergreen project. That project got a $2 million grant from the Housing Trust Fund. That came out to $80,000 per unit. We lost the USDA 502 direct money, which subsidizes interest rates to 1%. When that was gone, it got to be a scramble. And the community frameworks came through with down payment assistance. And so and again, the Housing Finance Commission came through with, and you probably know the home loan went down to 4.5%. In any case, the property was there next to Virginia Mason, and the council did grant a bonus density that brought the per unit lot cost down, so it all penciled. It is combined with open market, but we didn't make what we wanted to, but we are surviving on the affordable units, so it's not hopeless. And I'm not going to comment about the 625. I think we need affordable housing. There's nothing wrong with proving that you're an accommodating community by having affordable housing on an important corner. But let's not forget the Suzuki piece. That piece has been left empty, and it's ideal for affordable housing and probably not quite as controversial. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That's the list of people who have signed up. Anyone in the audience would like to come forward and speak, please give your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Eric Cordum. I used to be on the Historic Commission. And, we lost a very important building, first fire station on the island, to affordable housing. And that makes me not a real big fan of affordable housing. On I haven't received a red penny from any charity or government organization or anything. I have never been entitled to anything. So I vehemently oppose the affordable housing building to where the police station, or excuse me, first fire station on the island used to be. Number two, I am really amazed how the state can come into a community and tell us how to run our community. And they're talking to council members, but are they really talking to the people in the community? I think not. I just don't think that the state should make all these mandates. I knew this was coming with this Department of Commerce. And you pick Bainbridge Island, who happens to have a sole source aquifer. If you look, and a lot of you guys get on YouTube, the city council meetings are appearing on YouTube, which is a good platform, I think. But anyway, if you look on YouTube and see the water crisis, I'm not talking about local. I'm talking about national, worldwide. And we need to look at that and look at the examples of these other cities, such as Phoenix, that has to put a complete halt on building because of the exponential growth that we have in this country and the exponential amount of global warming. It's happening quicker than we think it is. And we need to really take a good look at how our communities are saying, no more people. Keep our sole source aquifer. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but Whidbey Island, thanks to the federal government, they pipe in millions and millions of gallons of water because they're losing their water on the island. That is an island too. So I look at this in amazement and I think, why could we be so stupid to think that we have to have more people and we have to look at the situation with affordable housing before we look at the problems of sustaining our own environmental community, our own water. So anyway, it just amazes me how we just get off into these tangents and we don't look at what the problems can really be.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else in the audience like to address the council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thanks for letting me have that opportunity. My name was on the second sheet, by the way. Probably you didn't see it. But in any case, I'm Rob Drury. I'm a resident of Bainbridge Island, and someone earlier said maybe good to take a grain of salt now and then. And I would suggest several salt tablets at this point, given some of the input that I've observed. But there's some very important realities I'd like to just put into context here. I'm glad the Commerce Department is here to hear what the public has to say. And one of the things that I have to say is that it's probably will be a little noted and long not remembered what I'm saying tonight, but the context is that I in the past have been a consultant for the Centers for Disease Control, Hanford Health Effects Committee, dealing with radiation problems that they had there in Richland. And those of you that are keeping up to speed on it have noticed they haven't really resolved the problem in 60 years. There's a reason for that. And the reason is the context that government processes sometimes get bogged down in interminable disputes over terminology, regulations, interpretations, and so forth. So I don't pretend to understand the overall context of some of these deliberations that Commerce is attempting to look into, but I'm glad they are. Several people in the audience have already mentioned their confusion over what exactly is what. And I admit I'm a member of that group too. But one thing that is indisputable, and I would just like to observe it, that my specialty is social epidemiology. In other words, how do people get sick and why and where? And there's some founding principles in that area that apply much more broadly. They have to do with ecology. And what I hope that this discussion can move towards is the understanding that all natural systems have what's called a carrying capacity, and it allows the system to maintain itself. And as several people have noted, water is one of the elements of that, but there are a few other elements too, like air and treatment of waste. These are all important issues. But to determine the carrying capacity of the system is essential before you try to regulate it. And I would say that to do that, you need to quantify the data regarding the system so that you know what a sole source aquifer means and what the implications of that might be. And that's just one dimension of this dilemma, but it is an important one. Then once those, oh my gosh, I'm over time. Once those criteria are determined, then you have to develop the idea of growth with those constraints in mind. You cannot grow beyond the capacity that you have. And conflating affordable housing with these important issues is a complete red herring. No one I know of is saying that affordable housing is inappropriate or limited by ecological computable. So I did run over, sorry to say that. Looks like several people did tonight, but thanks for the chance to address that issue with the Department of Commerce and the City Council too. These principles apply at all levels. They don't apply at one level. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And I do owe you an apology. I went through this sheet and went to this name, and this is the second sheet. But you signed on the third. I didn't see in the back there. So, yes. All right, very good. So please move forward.
So Michael Schwank, and I'll do everything in my power to stay under 3 minutes. I'd like to just go up 10,000 feet and think about what's gone on here tonight and what's gone on leading up to it and whatnot. I know the Planning Commission has just burned hours and hours and hours. I take in good faith that the City Council has the right motivation to do the right thing for the comp plan and all these kind of things. I take a little umbrance, nothing personal, strictly business, that the Commerce Department is here basically trying to put a square peg into a round hole and then rationalize it with this is this and this is what the regs say and all this kind of stuff. And I feel sorry for the gentleman there that doesn't get the affordable housing he thinks he deserves on this island. We should have affordable housing. And there's no reason why we can't have affordable housing and do it right. But we have to prioritize. We have to be able to focus. And the state should come down and instead of saying, here's a regulation and we're here to see if you're following it properly and try to put that square peg into a round hole. And if you don't, we're going to stop giving you money that you desperately need for groundwater, for wastewater treatment or runoff treatment. No, why doesn't the state go back and take a look at how they could help us? Well, first of all, we need money. If we really want truly affordable housing for people and enough of it, we can't do it by doing market rates, inclusionary, exclusionary, all the whatever labels we love put on this. We're at a tipping point on Bainbridge. We're hitting up against walls, getting on and off the island. We're up against the wall. How much we can sustain in people, we're up against the wall. How much water we have, we're up against the wall. So what we really need to do is recognize those constraints, recognize, and then think, what are the priorities? We need a certain amount of affordable housing, then the state can come down and help us and give us some money. to do this. All these unfunded mandates and whatever. I am a resident that has lived here since '82. I came here because my in-laws lived here. I bought a house for $60,000. It was a fixer-upper. Thank you, Marilyn. I worked on it. I sold it 7 years later, and I bought a house up the hill for $175,000. It's probably worth $1 million now, $1.3 million or something. But I've lived in that house for 36 years. I'm not the enemy here. I'm paying my taxes and whatnot. And I'm voting for people in Olympia to do things, to get things done. And I'll be honest with you, I vote a lot of Democrats because I think some of the Republicans are just off the Richter scale. But the Democrats aren't doing the job there. And all this energy and time and money, right now, tonight, we probably could have built 3 units of affordable housing with all the hours here. And so I'm begging everybody to recognize that it's not that we don't want you. We don't need you to come down here and tell us we're not conforming. We need you to help us figure out how we can get the affordable housing for the people that need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, if you'd like to move forward, please state your name in 3 minutes.
I came here my name is Gene Mellenbacher. I live on the island. I'm a newbie compared to most of you. We've only been here since 2014. I did not come here with the intention of speaking. I came with the intention of learning. I learned a lot. Some of it was reinforced. Some of it was new information. But the one thing I noticed that I learned the most from, I learned technical things from all of you. I learned people things from all of you. And there are a ton of people things in this room. We have a tendency to say, well, I want to do this, but I can't because we set priorities. And sometimes priorities become a catchword for eliminating some things that you can't do. So I have some problems with priorities. In my life, I lived in 10 different states. I had a job that moved me around. Wasn't in the military, but it moved me around. 10 different states in 17 years in Europe. I saw a lot of different systems. I saw a lot of different people. I saw a lot of different problems. You learn a lot about a foreign country when you actually have to live with the residents, as immigrants have to learn when they come here. But in all the years of my work life and moving around, one thing stuck with me. I tried to use it in my job. Everything does not have to be mutually exclusive. Affordable housing does not have to fall by the wayside because they were a victim of priorities. Can we get affordable housing for everybody that needs it? I can't make that decision, but I would guess probably not. But can we get affordable housing for somebody? Sure we can. I've seen some of it built. I live on the south side. There's affordable housing. From what I understand, there's affordable housing going up above the harbor at Blakely Harbor. Townhouses, duplexes, something like that. It's there. It may not be right for everybody, but it's there. That money came from somewhere. Maybe there was something else that didn't get done. But as soon as we start excluding things and taking things in priority, meaning I can't do this at all, somebody loses. And in some cases, nobody wins. The gentleman that serves here for that many years, I've met servers in a bunch of different countries, and they're not much different than servers anywhere else. They're terrific. You go back to restaurants because you like the server. You tip well because you like the server. You meet them on the street and you talk to them because you recognize them and they recognize you. You want them to be part of the community. So you try to do that. So that's part of things that aren't mutually exclusive. So I would ask all of you and all of us out here, when we see these things, and please stay involved. They need to know what we think. We need to know what they think for we all to make decent decisions. But let's not play the mutually exclusive game. No offense again to the people from the Commerce Department, but you are put in a bad spot of having to make those sorts of decisions. Maybe you guys and us can help make them easier for you by spreading them out a little bit. I don't know. If I knew all of that, I would, yeah, I guess I wouldn't be anything. I like what I am.
Thank you so much. Any other person in the audience like to speak? That's actually a very nice spot to leave this. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Thank you, members of State Department of Commerce, for coming all the way down from up, I guess, from Olympia, and appreciate that. We only have a few more items on the agenda. Can we blow through these relatively quickly? Very good. Let's do that. All right. So item 8A, authorize the city manager to sign the Wintergreen Phase 2 multifamily tax exemption contract. Would you, if we could carry your conversations outside, we need to finish it. We need to finish several items on the agenda. So if you have conversations that you would like to continue, I would encourage you to leave the chamber so we can finish our work here.
Good
Thank you.
evening, Council. Ellen Schroer, Interim City Manager. And perhaps apropos, the next item on the agenda is related to multifamily housing tax exemption, which enables affordable housing on Bainbridge Island. In particular, we are requesting via this agenda item that the City Council approve an MFTE multifamily housing tax exemption contract with developers of the Wintergreen development. This is for Wintergreen Project Phase 2. The effect of this contract is to provide a partial property tax exemption for the 43 units of housing in Phase 2 of this development. Of the 43 in the total development, 14 are for income qualified households at or below 80% of area median income. Staff has received a complete application, and the next step now is for you to approve or authorize me to sign that contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Interim City Manager. Council?
Yeah, I'll just, thanks, Mayor. I'll make the motion if that's okay. I move to authorize the city manager to sign the Wintergreen Phase 2 multifamily tax exemption contract.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Matthews, seconded by Councilmember Lamb to authorize the city manager to sign the Wintergreen Phase 2 multifamily tax exemption contract. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Vote is 5-0. The chair votes aye, 6-0. Thank you very much, Council and City Manager. Let's go to regular business item number 8B. And we have a confirm appointment to the Planning Commission.
Yes, Council, in front of you is the request to confirm a recommended appointment to the Planning Commission. We had a Planning Commissioner resign. This was an item that we had been told might happen. So when the selection committee met earlier this year, they picked a backup, and that is this person or an alternate. And so this alternate is now in front of you for confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion? Councilmember Nelson?
I move to confirm the recommended appointment of John Sandedge to the Planning Commission, position 6, to complete a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2028.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson and Councilmember Lant. Councilmember Nelson has moved to confirm this appointment to the Planning Commission, seconded by Councilmember Lant. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Vote is 5-0. Chair votes aye. It's 6-0. Now we are on to
The discussion.
sorry.
Sorry about that. It's okay.
No.
Just a comment that just really excited to see the Planning Commission full now with members, but really wanted to just throw out all the appreciation for the work that both council member Sean Sullivan and Ariel Bertley, who we didn't get to acknowledge because it might have, I'm not sure when it was, but just wanted to really acknowledge both of their work trying to get to us to this point, and really grateful for all that they did. So, and really excited about this new member who comes from the United Nations. So some diplomatic, I just think it's going to fill out the Planning Commission really well. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. And I would say that yourself and Councilmember Lant and I, we really enjoyed the interviews. Really a lot of talented passionate people wanting to volunteer for our city. So that says a lot. Thank you very much. Now, I guess this back to you on communications 9A.
Okay, I'll make it short and sweet. So just want to get something on the agenda to discuss the Kitsap Public Utility District's proposed intertie on the south end of the island in Fort Ward. It would help, I think, with a lot of the water conservation conversations we're having. I'm hearing a lot from our constituents down there, as well as from KPUD. And so just wanted to get this on an agenda.
Deputy Mayor Hightower.
Could we broaden it to a check-in as well on just any conversations going on about the interties? We're talking plural, aren't we? I mean, intertie to the north side as well.
Correct, we are working on.
I'd like an update on all of the above. I think it's all very critical.
Okay, and I will note that this is scheduled for discussion at the August UAC meeting, Utility Advisory Committee meeting, so it could come right after that, and that would be good timing.
Okay. Are we, Councilmember Nelson?
Yeah, can I just clarify?
You got to move your mic back because I just can't see the light.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sir.
Can I just clarify, is this the same intertie issue we were spoken of before, or is this different?
Different.
Oh, it's different. So what's the difference
This is,
here?
well, I think we've more talked about the north end, right? Or maybe, I don't know if
We were talking about one.
Wait. Direct
Right,
question.
so this is talking about the one specifically, the Fort Ward water system intertie.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so, but I do agree with expanding it. I was just being selfish and only caring about the South, but I think it's a good issue to talk about in general.
I wouldn't say you're just selfish, that's just your ward.
Yeah.
Which does make you selfish, actually. Anyway, thank you. So it's going to be on the Utility Advisory Committee meeting in August, and hopefully they'll have a study and recommendation for us. Anything, council announcements, number 10, anyone? Deputy Mayor Hightower.
Fine, they have a council announcement. No, I feel obligated to let you all know that I was invited to go on the podcast at the Senior Center by Reed Price to talk about some things that I had recently said on council about. I think the focus they've been talking about is just the trust kind of breakdown of the community. I'm actually mostly interested in talking about what I talked about previously about just all of us having a more civil dialogue, so I will do my best to not do anything undermining or unfair to any of us or our organization, but I accepted the conversation because it feels like it could be a positive conversation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Was it Councilmember Nelson then Lant, or was it Lant and Nelson? Councilmember Nelson then Lant, or Councilmember Lant and Nelson? Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I was similarly invited to be on this podcast, and I'm going to schedule some time to do it. I'm not sure exactly when. Sometime probably this month. Also was invited to be on the BI Standard podcast again, which that's a fun one. But what I actually wanted to give an announcement about just was the steering committee meeting that we had yesterday, and that might be something to just bring up. And as Chair Blossom pointed out, it ended up just being her and me at the meeting. And so we got some time to talk through it. And most of what was discussed was the mandatory inclusionary zoning program. And so obviously we had the prior version that the consultant had difficulty assessing how many units that would create. And then the Planning Commission last Thursday recommended a different version, which was based off of unit number instead of lot size. And the feedback from our consultant LMN was that was also going to be very difficult to assess how many units that would create. And so the conversation really ended up a lot of frustration between myself and Chair Blossom. I mean, on the same side of the frustration about essentially seems like there's no real way to do a mandatory inclusionary zoning program and actually have it assessed as far as how many units it would create. We kind of pushed on it, and I don't know if Emily she doesn't look like she's still here, but really this idea that they could give us a number, but there has to be a lot of assumptions embedded in that number. And I think both Sarah and myself were of the opinion that create that number, right? And because there's going to have to be assumptions in there, because otherwise you just have to do market rate upzoning and you're not actually going to get anything. And then we also did have a couple members of the development community that were present in the public, and we invited them to the table and to talk with them about how they felt about it. And I share Chair Blossom's take on it, which was very much that the development community is not really interested in seeing a mandatory inclusionary zoning program because they just feel that it doesn't pencil and that that essentially no one will want to build anything, right? And you know, I appreciated the perspective. I think you kind of take it with a grain of salt because as policymakers, we want a certain outcome. But I think in the end, what Emily wanted to do from the planning department was to talk to LMN and to try to craft some options to bring back to us. Instead of just doing one land capacity analysis and saying it is or it isn't compliant, but try to create options that are compliant, right? And I think a few of them obviously is the February LCA, which we know is compliant, but that's market rate upzoning. The second one is potentially what we did at the last council meeting where we went back to the June LCA, but we increased the max FAR. And if you include the older version of the mandatory inclusionary zoning program, which apparently creates like 193 units by their estimate, that could potentially be compliant. And then the third is for them to actually try to create some estimate for the most recent recommendation from the Planning Commission for the mandatory inclusionary zoning program. So it sounds like the planning department is going to explore each of those options and hopefully come back with us with more information and a decision point with options. Because at this point, we need to be looking at options that are compliant to get this done. And so I will say it was a very good discussion that we had. I wish more members of council and the Planning Commission were there. But anyway, so that's my report from the steering committee.
Thank you, Councilor Nelson. Councilmember Lamb.
Oh, I so appreciate that report out. Thank you for that. I'm just going to mention that the Utility Advisory Committee was at the farmers market at a table this last Saturday, and I thought they did a very clever thing, which was put up a giant map of the island, and they had different colored push pins, and they had a little key at the bottom of the map with different cellular service providers at the bottom, and invited members of anybody to walk up and pick up the appropriate colored push pin if they were having any issues with their cell coverage where they lived. So they would put in the T-Mobile was up here and the Verizon was down here, and there was people waiting to get push pins and talk about their coverage. I thought it was brilliant. Ted Jones is a rock star. I think he is the one that came up with that idea. But there was a lot of public interaction and data gathering.
Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Matthews. Oh, wait, Councilmember Matthews, then Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Mayor. So this past, I forget what day it was, but there was a really interesting open house up on Hilltop to demonstrate what's going to happen when they do a controlled burn that's going to be upcoming. And so learned a lot there. And so check in if you live in that area. It sounded like it was very safe and all kinds of different things in place, but just very interesting. And then don't forget, National Night Out is August 1st, August 4th. And then August 1st would be Saturday. Councilmember Nelson and I would usually have our first Saturday of the month coffee. He cannot do it and I cannot do it. So we cannot do this month or this. So we will resume when school starts. So September. So I think that's a lot of folks are away for August. And if you are around Bainbridge this week, and you'll notice why I'm going to be away, I'm going to be working in Seattle at a yarn convention that I'm dyeing all the yarn for my shop. But there are going to be lots of visitors to the island. Probably maybe, I think there's several thousand coming into Seattle, but we'll have probably 500 came the last time or more here to events starting tomorrow. And they're coming in from Denmark and all over the world and Europe. So I'm really excited to see us roll out our welcome mat to all the knitters and crocheters and fiber artists. So if you see folks sitting around with their knitting needles and sweaters looking joyful, just point them in the right direction. It's going to be a really happy weekend. The festival was actually founded by a Bainbridge Island, a shop here on Bainbridge Island called La Mercerie that's in Church Mouse's old space. And she developed this festival 4 years ago. And so this is our 4th year. So just really cool.
Thank you. Councilor Matthews, done? I had just one thing to report out. We had the Housing Kitsap meeting today, And just giving you updates on our rhododendron. We're at both of our complexes, Finch Place, about 85%. And there's 3 vacancies and 3 applications. Rhododendron's about 90% with maybe 4 vacancies. And the most important part, rhododendron, for those who are following along, it's the apartment complex straight across from high school. They're putting in new balconies. They're going to be totally new, refurbished, fresh. They're ready to go. They're just waiting for our city permit. So that's just where we are on that. And I have nothing else to report out. So with no objection, adjourn the meeting.